Welcome along to the Salt and Sauce Show, episode 4. My name's David Simmonds and tonight I'm at Ainsley Park, home of Edinburgh City and Spartans Football Club. Reason for me being here is because on this week's show I am joined on the couch by Edinburgh City manager James McDonaugh. It's episode 4 of the Salt and Sauce Show. Hope you enjoy. Yes, welcome along to episode 4 of the Salt and Sauce Show. I'm David Simmonds and I'm joined on the couch tonight by James McDonaugh, the Edinburgh City football manager. Thanks for coming on the show, James.
You're welcome.
So, tell us a bit about your football journey. Where did it all kind of begin?
Well, I was still playing, trying to make my way in the game, 17, 18. I was in my last year at school actually, 6th year at school when I started coaching and took the second year school team, so I got a wee flavour of it then, but I was still wanting to be a player. I still had, like every boy at that age, they're wanting to go full time, you're mad for it. And I finished under 18s, played for Berwick Rangers reserves in midweek and still played 18s at the weekend. And then I signed for Alloa, again played with reserves, farmed out junior, and never really got a chance. Probably, to be honest, I wasn't going to be good enough, but persevered. And then kind of probably realised, when I realised that I wasn't going to be good enough, sort of turned my hand to coaching quite young. Still kind of kicked about what's now the Lone League, played with Whitehill Welfare and Spartans and played a wee bit junior, but started coaching really young. Yep,
so I mean, as you say, coaching really young, you then started to get involved in the coaching ladder and you actually ended up getting a role at Hibs, didn't you, in the Hibs Academy?
Aye, so I'd left school and I took Tynecastle Boys Club just for 1 year, and then I got asked to come into the Hibs Academy around about 2000. And I worked for about 5 or 6 years, just part-time, non-paid sort of job, just balls, bibs and cones, picking them up and learning off of people that played the game for a long time, your Gordon Rays, your Keith Wrights, and just kind of learning off of boys that have played and made a good career in the game, and just picking as much up as I could, and that was probably my apprenticeship, if you like. And then ended up, I left and done the rounds a wee bit within a year. I had kind of went to East Fife and Dunfermline. I went full time with Gretna and that kind of crashed, and then came back to Hibs in 2007 full time. Yeah,
I mean, you must have made a good impression because you landed the role ahead of academy coaching at Hibs, didn't you?
Yeah, I came back in 2007 and my first kind of role was just to oversee the grassroots, sort of 12s and down, take the under 17s. I think at that time Hearts were getting all the players in the city, and Hibs were kind of left with sort of second pick, so I had to kind of sort that out. So I had a bit of 3 roles, so it was in control the under 12s, get the young players in at 10-year-old, take the under 17s and help Alistair Stevenson with the under 19s.
Yep, and I mean, I think I first crossed paths with you when I was playing East of Scotland, and you were taking under 20s team that first joined East of Scotland. What was your memories of that?
Yeah, it was a good season for us. I think unfortunately it was the season Hibs got relegated, so I think that was about 7 years ago. I think it's 2013-14, I think, season. So at that point, Pat Fenlon was a manager, I think, and he left and Terry Butcher came in that season. We had the Development League, Reserve League, whatever you wanted to call it, in the midweek, and we also played on the Saturday in the East of Scotland League, so plenty of games for the reserves, and all the way down to 17s. Really, we're getting exposure to men's football.
Yeah, and you actually won that league that year, didn't you? When it went to the last day we were talking about off air, didn't it?
Aye, we were just talking about that last night actually. A couple of players we've got at Edinburgh City. We played Civil Service Rowers last night and we actually won a cup on that pitch down at Marine Drive 6 years ago. Right. So that was that year we won the league last day against East Houses. We should be winning the league, to be fair, but it was a good experience because we had a lot of 17, 18-year-olds just trying to make their way in the game, playing against men. So we've done all right, yeah.
So what sort of players were in that team that maybe kicked on and made a career out of football that you had back then?
Well, Jason Cummins started in the team that year, but he was quickly in the first team that year, and the team changed quite a lot. There was Danny Hanlon, Alex Harris maybe appeared in it, maybe even Jordan Foster a couple of games, but there was younger ones as well, like Scott Martin, who's now at Hamilton, players like that. Sam Stanton played the odd game, Ross Caldwell the odd game. We just used it sort of as a third team game, to be fair. So it was good.
And you obviously utilised it as well to get like some first team players maybe going back to full fitness come and play for you guys as well, didn't you?
Yeah, we had a few. Obviously there was a change of manager, so I was at Hibs 7 years and there was 7 changes of managers. So we're used to, as a reserve team coach or youth coach, we're used to first team players being in favour with one manager and then out of favour with the next manager. So yeah, we had a lot of big names trained by us over the time, and probably the biggest one that season, Kevin Thompson, played for us in a Saturday game at the training centre. and was called into the Scotland squad in the next couple of days, so that was a bit of a strange one.
I love that story. You told that off air. So he was playing against, was it Hawick Royal Albert, I think, on the Saturday?
I think it was. I think he wasn't going to be featuring for the first team that weekend, so he actually asked the manager could he play in our team, and I think the manager was a bit taken aback and said, right, okay, on you go. And he applied himself brilliantly. He was great with the young players, and I think we won the game quite heavily. And then, strangely enough, I think somebody pulled out the Scotland squad, and within a couple of days, Kevin was playing centre mid with Scott Brown in a training game with Scotland. So
that's mental. That speaks volumes for the kind of player that obviously Kevin Thompson was, just wanting to play football, wasn't he?
Yeah, that's it. He was a footballer. He loved coming and training with the young players because we wanted to get the ball down and pass it, play the right way, as everybody says these days, that phrase. But he enjoyed playing with us at that stage, let's say.
Brilliant. So, like I say, you took that under-20s team in the East of Scotland League, basically bottom of the pyramid scheme, if you like. A lot of other countries, like especially in Spain, I know Germany do it as well, and there's a big talk about Celtic and Rangers doing like a Colts team. Do you think that's a sort of beneficial thing that Scottish football can maybe adapt and have senior teams have Colt teams in the lower leagues?
I think it's got to be looked at. I think there's a lot of good young players in the country, there always is, but there's something happens at a certain age that they don't kick on. You'll see them at international tournaments and they seem to do well, 15s, 16s, or when youth teams go abroad, they always seem to do well, but it seems to be when they get to that transition sort of period of 17 to 21, I'm not so sure what happens. So certainly need to try something, whether that's Rangers and Celtic having Colt teams in our league, or maybe just having partnership clubs and promoting it that way.
Definitely, because I know that obviously Berwick Rangers, they had a team in the East of Scotland as well as the senior team at one stage. I think Stranraer actually have a Stranraer reserves in the South of Scotland League, so it's definitely something that could probably be looked into, especially with the pyramid scheme now as well. We'll come to your Edinburgh City role very shortly in the interview, but what's your thoughts on the pyramid scheme? Obviously Edinburgh City's been a great story and they've utilised the pyramid scheme, but the likes of Kelly Hearts and stuff, they must be feeling a bit ill blood after what's happened this season. Do you think the pyramid scheme's a good thing, or?
I think it is a good thing. I think it could be even more of a pyramid scheme, if I'm being honest. I think there's a wee opportunity there with recent times to change it, and maybe it wasn't the best time to change it, maybe it was, who knows. We'll never know, it's not been changed, but I think the way Scotland is and the amount of money that goes out the game in terms of travel, me personally, I would love to see 2 full-time leagues and then regional leagues below that feeding into the Championship. I think, like, so you look at our league next season, you've got Annan, Stranraer and Elgin, could easily have been sort of cove in that league, the travel, and bus companies are making more than the football clubs at times. So for me, I would like to see more of a pyramid system and maybe some sort of 3 or 4 regions under the Championship, and then a playoff system, just to make it a wee bit more exciting. I think the playoffs have worked. Edinburgh City obviously have benefited before I came to the club in getting up, and as you mentioned there, Kelty will be a feel for them, I think.
Yep.
Although their league wasn't finished, they got awarded the league, as did Brora, so maybe Borderig might have something to say about that as well. But yeah, I think for nothing to have happened was really unfortunate, and you could go the same with us. I mean, Cove were deserved winners. I never say anything against them. They were really good all season, but equally we had them to play at home. We'd already beat them at home. We had a game in hand. We could have got it down to 7 points behind with 7 games left, and anything can happen. So
that's it.
It was a bit unfortunate.
2020, the year of ifs and buts, isn't
That's
it?
right. I know it's just unfortunate we never got the chance to participate in the playoffs. But I think the pyramid system is a good thing. I think it could be even better if it was adjusted as well.
Definitely. So your time at Hibs, you actually ended up being in charge of the first team for a couple of games, didn't you? When you were in between managers,
No, I never got that chance. Actually, no.
I thought you and Grant Murray took the team.
No, that was after me. Grant came in after me. So no, I was 7 years with 7 managers, but they obviously never trusted me to take the team for a couple of games in between. So something I always would have loved to have done, but never got the opportunity.
So moving on from your time at Hibs, you then moved on to Falkirk. You were assistant manager at Peter Houston at Falkirk. How was that? How was that from a jump from taking the guys at Hibs, moving up to first team football at Falkirk?
Yeah, it was great. I never knew Peter Houston at all. Alan Stubbs came in, and the season had just started. They played Livingston, I think, the first game, and Peter's assistant manager had went to Norwich to take the youth team, and Alan Mabry had went there, and Tom Tywod went there. So when Peter was looking for an assistant, I think they sort of recommended me, and I just met him. I'd never met him before, and just met him, and he said I wanted to come and be my assistant. So it was a big move for me because I'd moved my family to Hibs training ground, moved schools, moved house. When Pat Fenlon was the manager, obviously Pat left, Terry took over, finished bottom of the league, got relegated, second bottom, sorry, and got relegated in the playoffs. So it was a big decision for me then to go another direction and make that move, but it just felt right at the time. And yeah, loved my 3 years with Peter at Falkirk.
Yeah, because you actually made the Scottish Cup final, didn't
Yeah.
you? You unfortunately got beat 2-1 by Inverness Cali, but what was your memories of that day?
Brilliant. I mean, we beat Hibs obviously in the semi-final.
1-0 was it? Yeah.
Aye, 1-0. So to go to the final, that was my first year to get to the Scottish Cup final, and we had a chance. Actually, we drew level. They got a man sent off, and we just got hit on a bit of a sucker punch on the counter attack. So yeah, we had good years. We'd finished fifth that season, which we weren't too pleased about, but we got to the cup final, and then the second and third season. So, and the league, the championship was obviously really strong. The first year, Hearts, Rangers, and Hibs were in it, and the second year, Rangers and Hibs, and the third year, Hibs and Dundee United. So, yeah, it was good to get to the final. Obviously, disappointing to lose on the day.
Yeah, I mean, how was that day? Like walking out at Hampden, that's probably every schoolboy's dream that plays. Like walking out that tunnel at Hampden and seeing all the fans there. There's obviously, like I say, the result didn't go your way, but that must have been. Would you say that was up there one of your highlights so far?
Definitely. I'd been involved a couple of times before with Hibs, luckily and unluckily. To be fair, we'll not talk about the games, but just as a sort of helper on the Scottish Cup finals against Hearts and Celtic. So I'd kind of experienced being out on the pitch on the Scottish Cup final day and involved a wee bit in the warm up, although not really involved with the team. But I would say that day was fantastic. It was unfortunate actually. My wife and my daughter actually missed it because she was in a final down in Britain, and she does trampolining.
Right, okay.
So half my family kind of weren't there, so it was a wee bit disappointing for that side of things. But no, it was a great occasion to be involved at that level, and you just wonder what if we had kind of nicked the winner instead of that. It could have been a game changer.
Because you actually finished above Hibs one year in the league, didn't you, when you were at Falkirk?
Yeah, I was led to believe that's the only time Falkirk have finished above Hibs in my lifetime. So for a Hibs fan, it was a good achievement, but had most of my family not too happy with me at that period.
So going back to when you first got into coaching, you said you started quite early. Did you progress up the SFA pathway in football?
Yeah, so basically started right at the bottom. So right down level 1, might have even been early touches certificate way back then. I think it was A, B, C, D and E, and now it's a level 1. So yeah, right at the bottom and worked my way up. Never sort of bypassed any levels. And now I've got all my children's, all my youth, and all my adult and my pro licence. So
yeah, I've got that here quite decorated, like you say. You've got your UEFA Pro licence, SFA Youth licence, and SFA Advanced Children's licence.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what advice would you give to anybody that's maybe watching this podcast that thinks, do you know what, I'm already going through this pathway, the SFA. Like, what's the limit really?
I think you've got to dream big. I think, I was just desperate to be a player. When I was younger, I didn't really want to be a coach, but probably at that point when I recognised that something's not good enough for me to make it, that I just love football. So I think you've got to put the effort in, dream big and study the game, just love the game and keep working hard. I know everybody says work hard, and you might think you're working hard, I might think I'm working hard. There's different levels, so you've just got to go the maximum and listen and learn and put the hours in, and you never know what can happen.
Who knows where it'll take you, maybe Hampden one day at Scottish Cup
Maybe,
final. So you're involved with the SFA as well, because I've crossed paths with you at numerous like coaching badges myself. Obviously recently with the whole COVID situation, a lot of it's been over Zoom. How have you found taking sort of coaching badges over that sort of platform?
I've really enjoyed it. I just kind of get called upon when they need me, so just part-time tutor and do some coach education. So I've been doing that a few years now, up to sort of UEFA B licence level. When they spoke about doing it over Zoom, I thought, this is crazy. This is never going to work. I don't know how you can do a coaching course over Zoom, but whilst you lose a lot of on the pitch tuition, the theory online is actually really good. I think most people have been pleasantly surprised by it. Yeah,
what I enjoyed about it is obviously we got, the last one I did during lockdown, we got put in like little groups. So it was just literally, like you say, apart from the practical thing, you're meeting new people, you're engaging with. I mean, the good thing about Zoom is I was on a course with guys in Canada, in America, and there was one from France and Italy. So it was kind of opening up that gateway for more people to get involved, whereas obviously before, if it was at Tory Glen or Riccarton, the guys would never have been able to participate in that. Do you think that's a market that the SFA will maybe try and expand on now? Or?
I think they have. I think they've really looked into it the last few months. I mean, I know at one point I was doing a lot of them with Alan White, and we were kind of putting the flags in the maps type thing. We were people from virtually every country in the world at one point from as far away as you can think, all over. So I think they've explored that really well.
Perfect. We'll come and talk about your Edinburgh City role in just a second, but meantime, we're going to cross over to our chippy of choice this week. Here's how we got on. So this week's chippy of choice, I'm in the East Lothian village of Musselburgh. We are at Mario's. They do some cracking kebabs. It's well worth coming along and visit them. They've got their own app now, so it's all COVID friendly. You can pre-order via their app. Highly recommend Mario's on the main street here in Musselburgh, just down from the Brunton Hall. Come along and visit them. It's this week's chippy of choice. Thanks to this week's chippy of choice. So yeah, cracking back on with James McDonaugh. Let's talk about your current role. Your first team manager at Edinburgh City, is that correct?
Yep, that's right.
So you were appointed in October 2017 and obviously you're still there to this day. How's the journey been?
It's been really interesting. Obviously my first managerial job.
Because when you took over it was kind of battling relegation, weren't you? You almost made it back down to the Lowland League, is that right?
Yeah, so obviously they'd come up through the pyramid. Gary Jardine had done a great job to get them into League Two and then keep them in League Two in the first season. So I had just left Falkirk through Falkirk's choice, not through my choice, with Peter Houston in the September, and I think I was only out of work maybe 3 weeks. I kind of always wanted to be a manager, but I wasn't too hung up on being it, or when the timing of that was going to come. Obviously, I was just below. I wasn't quite 40 at that stage, so I felt I was still quite young, and my strengths were probably on the training pitch, So to go into management, I thought would maybe come at one point. I wasn't sure if it was the right time, but anyway, the opportunity came around. Edinburgh City were maybe 8-10 games into the season and struggling. I think they were struggling to score and win, and Gary had obviously moved on. So I thought, well, may as well,
give it a bash,
try it. Exactly. I was sitting in the house. It was the worst 3 Saturdays in my life, listening to the radio, and so I thought I'll try it.
Definitely. I mean, there's nothing worse. I agree with that as well. Like, I gave up football for a year when we first started a family, and as much as I loved spending time with my newborn, there's something just about football, isn't it? That romance of missing a Saturday, isn't there?
Yeah, I think it was the first Saturday. I was just trying to stay away from football. Obviously, we lost our job the weekend before, and I took my daughter. She was golfing down at Gullen, getting a lesson, and I was sitting in the car listening to the radio, and Falkirk scored away to Morton, and I was like, it was devastating because I felt we could have won that game anyway, and obviously we were away and they were just ready to it looked like they were ready to turn the tide. Obviously they weren't because they never recovered. But that was difficult.
So you came in, like you said, in place of Gary Jardine, and you managed to keep the team up that year, didn't you?
It was really difficult. The team that inherited had obviously done great to get them there, but it was a real eye-opener for me, and in hindsight I probably wouldn't have taken the job, to be fair, once I had seen what I'd seen the first couple of months, and it was just step by step. I think we took a few games maybe a couple of games to get a goal, which was progress, and then win a game type thing. But I've been 3 years there now, and for a first job in management, there's not many managers last 3 years in their first job, so
exactly,
kind of quite chuffed with that.
And you must be doing well because you've won manager of the month, in September 2018 and in December 2019.
I know, and I should have got an hour 5 times as well, but they never gave me it. But no, I'm only joking. No, that was a proud thing to be selected as that as manager of the month twice. So hopefully get it again this year.
Brilliant. Would you say, what sort of club are Edinburgh City? Basically, are they an ambitious club? Are they happy just being where they are, or do they strive to be like Cove that have progressed up to the next division? Or
yeah, I think they're very ambitious. It's just going to be difficult how to progress it again. They've got a new owner coming in. The chairman's done a lot of work. The board have done a lot of work. They've moved on in the 3 years that I've been there. I think that's been one of the good things for me. I've been able to build a club. A lot of managers these days are head coaches or they're first team coaches, and they're told to just do their work on the pitch, whereas I've been able to sort of build the whole club, backroom staff and how we run things and professionalism. So that's been good for me. I've been actually able to manage as well as coach.
Mm-hmm. So I always remember Edinburgh City, their home ground was Meadowbank Stadium, which is obviously no longer there now, it's been demolished. And you've been ground sharing with Spartans at Ainsley Park. Is that a long-term thing for the club? Is that going to be your new home from now on, or is there plans to move back to Meadowbank or have your own ground? Or
well, I don't think going back to Meadowbank will happen. I mean, maybe I'm talking out of turn there, but I don't think it will happen. I think going to Spartans, we're committed for another year.
Right.
But I think long-term, the club are ambitious. They want their own ground, they want their own stadium, if you like, and they want to, you know, put a bit into the community as well. So they want to tie in maybe a youth academy. There's like over 400 kids play for Edinburgh City every week, in the juvenile setup. So they want to bring all that together. Part of my role in the last couple of years has been going out at nights and helping the coaches there. So I think the club want to get their own home, preferably at some point, and bring the community together, bring the young team together, get the first team a base, and try and be the best they can, the best. I was going to say in the city there, but better just stick with third best in the city.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously one of the big names that was involved in your club recently was the legend Jim Jeffries. He's moved back to Hearts now, but you obviously seen him as an advisor when he was there. How was he to work alongside with?
It was perfect for me because at the time I took the job, there were other people, maybe like what would you call them, sporting directors, sitting in stands passing notes to other managers, and maybe interfering with managers. And Jim, I think, having seen that, he knew he would never do that with me. So I kind of benefited from what was happening quite publicly at another club. So Jim was great with me in that sense. He would never do that. He would just let me manage the team, let me make my own mistakes. If I wanted a bit of advice, he was there for me to ask him. And I think maybe only once he maybe overstepped the line and maybe said something, and I think he apologised for that. But he was good for me. He knew, from my point of view, I knew he wasn't somebody that wanted my job or wanted back in the dugout. He'd had his time, so I could use his experience and, you know, speak to him on a Sunday and realise what mistakes I'd made. And I think I'm probably being a better manager for it.
I mean, more and more clubs are going down this sort of route of having a sporting director or a sporting advisor. You're someone that's obviously had that. Is it beneficial for a club, do you think, to have that person to go to as a manager?
I think it depends on the club. Probably depends on the manager. I think it's probably a job I would love to do. I mean, I'm not 43 yet, so I think I've got a wee bit more time left in the dugout or on the pitch. But later on, I'd love to do it because I would see it as a job where somebody sets the tone for the club in a football sense, sets the philosophy, sets the recruitment, what type of players you bring to your club. Because you see what happened. When I mentioned there, I was 7 years at Hibs and 7 different managers. And the first manager I worked with, John Collins, who's total football, to then Terry Butcher, who it was a wee bit different to that. So if you're a sporting director, you really should be implementing a style of play, appointing and recruiting managers and players based on that. So it's a job that would interest me. I think some clubs maybe don't need it, but that's maybe a club that's got, you know, football know-how on the board. But if the board are maybe not really any football people on the board, maybe you need somebody to bridge that gap.
Brilliant. In regards to your playing squad, how has it been sort of communicating with the guys and starting back training through this whole COVID thing? How are you adapting to that?
It's been really difficult period, I think, for them all to be kind of locked up. So during that period I had to let some players go, which wasn't ideal because we hadn't seen them for weeks, and try to make that decision, and obviously bring new players in again, which was difficult because normally you would prefer to meet players one-to-one, even over a coffee, and, you know, look them in the eye and see if they really wanted to come. So you were kind of having to do that all over the phone, so that was difficult. But just initially was just staying in touch with them, making sure that mentally they were doing okay, you know, not climbing the walls. Everybody's different situations. Some families, some staying with parents, some staying on their own, some staying with partners. So just making sure they were basically all right and no unwell and that type of thing. And then obviously as time went on, you were trying to say to them about their fitness, although everybody's still on furlough, so you've got to be careful in terms of giving them programmes and whatever. So I would say a lot of trust. I mean, the playing squad's changed a lot in the 3 years since I've been there. There's maybe only 3, I think, survivors for the first group off the top of my head, Antel, Thompson and Laird. So a lot of them are my players that have come in, so I trust them, I know them. I've probably worked with about 10 of them before, so they've come back to play for us, so they know how I work. So, you know, when we've come back to pre-season, they know what it's going to be like, so you're trusting them in terms of their fitness preparation as well. So
you happy with how the squad's lined up for next season, or is there any more additions to come in? Or?
Well, I've got to say I would like another couple of players. I think that's a part of the line. The many time a manager asks if his squad's full or not, so maybe 1 or 2. Brought in one on loan from Rangers and hopefully one over the line the next couple of days from Hibs as well, on loan. We could maybe do with another 1 or 2. Just historically we've had a number of injuries, so the squad's always been tested the last couple of years. But I'm pretty happy with what we've built up. I mean, most of the boys have been playing full-time football in the last 6 or 7 years, so to get that Edinburgh City and the value I think that we've got them in terms of financially, I think it's been good business in most of them as well.
Good. So when does your season all kick off?
So we're due to play Livingston on October the 6th in the first Betfred game, and the league should kick off on the 17th of October, but as we all know...
Yeah, it's subject to change.
Yeah.
So are you at home to Livingston, are you away to Livingston? Or?
We're at home to Livingston in the Betfred, and the first league game's away to Brecon.
Right, so home to Livingston, you would expect obviously a big gate, and that would be good for the club, but it's probably not going to end up that way, unfortunately, is it?
Yeah, it's probably going to be closed doors, so we just have to make the most of it. We played our first friendly last night, and it was a bit strange, just everybody turning up in their strips, not even a changing room. That's not the home team's fault, that's just the way it goes, which is fine just now, but how that's going to look when you're bad weather and maybe, you know, travelled 4 hours to Elgin, if you're not getting a changing facility and you're no showers and things like that, I'm not so sure it's a great idea.
No. So you've been there now, what, 3 years?
Yeah.
Are you committed for this whole season? You still, are you in like a 2-3 year deal, or?
So my contract runs out in 8 months actually, so
right.
I'm not being offered a new one, so just have to...
Well, you've done a good job as of yet, haven't you? So
yeah, well, that's probably for other people to decide, but we took over a team that were 9th in the league, and then the next season we doubled our points, finished the 3rd, and got to the semi-final of the Edinburgh Cup, and last season finished 2nd. Who knows, probably could have a good chance in the playoffs, so I'm not so sure. Apart from winning the league, there's not much more we can do.
That's it. What's your aspirations as a manager? Obviously, I'm sure you're going to say that you want to stay with Edinburgh City and take them right all the way through the leagues, but you've clearly went from Whitehill Welfare to, like I keep going back to, Hampden Scottish Cup final. What is your aspirations, just to aim for the top, James? You come across as being a very ambitious manager.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not hell-bent on being manager at the top. I just want to be back full-time, first and foremost. I'm not somebody that sets long-term goals, but quite greedy and ambitious. I would love it to happen now. I just want to be back working with players every day, so if that was a manager, then great, but if it was an assistant again, or a youth coach, or, you know, down south at a big academy, I'm not adamant that it has to be management, but, you know, I've got an agent who keeps telling me that, you know, you're underselling yourself, you've got a good record, good win percentage, taking a team in a small budget from bottom to top, so just have to try and keep your feet on the ground and let other people decide if they want to give you a chance or not. Obviously, it's a bit a shame having not had a great playing career, and sometimes players that have played at a good level can just go right in at a higher level as a manager, but I think I've kind of done all my groundwork, you know, worked my way up. I've got, you know, I know how it works at youth level, I know how it works first team level, assistant, and obviously managing at League Two, but it wouldn't scare me to go and manage the Championship or higher at all.
Yeah. I mean, you're a prime example of like Joe Public, who just loves football, that wants to just go through the badges. I mean, you've said it yourself, you never made it as a pro, but you've managed to manage at that level, which is superb for anybody watching that wants to go up the SFA pathway. It's superb.
Yeah, I think probably if you go back 20, 30 years, it may be a wee bit unheard of, but in the last decade there's quite a lot of managers that have not been top players, that have, I mean, obviously big names, but they've not been top players, but have been top managers. So I think the game's changed a lot in that sense.
Definitely. One last thing I want to touch on before we conclude the interview, James, is how big is the crowd? How big not having them there? I mean, obviously you mentioned you had a friendly recently. What was it like playing behind closed doors? How big is a crowd, especially to clubs like Edinburgh City?
Well, from a playing point of view, it was okay because we don't have big crowds anyway, but you want your own fans. I mean, we have a small group of fans, and they are really important to the club because that's what drives the club forward. So in one sense it was a shame to miss them, but we're not used to playing in front of big noises, big crowds in that sense anyway. So
well, one thing I'm kind of hoping is if they put like a restriction on, I know some teams, I think it was Aberdeen, that have allowed 300 fans back, for instance, if they cap like Hibs and Hearts to even say eventually one day 5,000, I don't know if that would be the same obviously at Edinburgh City, but if it's maybe say 1,000 or 2,000, which maybe you don't normally get, then that's opening a gate for some fans to come and see Saturday football in Edinburgh that haven't got that opportunity anymore at Tynecastle or Easter Road.
Exactly.
Like I say, I think you must be quite a welcoming club, an ambitious club, and play good football. So would you welcome Hearts and Hibs along, would you?
Yeah, I think the club have shown initiatives to try and get the supporters along. First and foremost, we'd want our own fans back, so as long as they get back first. But like you say, that would be great if it was a blanket cap and we could maybe nick one or two other fans and increase our own fan base.
Definitely. Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Salt and Sauce Show. It's episode 4 with James McDonaugh.